Today is officially launch day for what I think is going to be one of the most popular GPUs of 2025, the 16GB 5060 Ti. Now the model I've got is the Asus TUF OC edition, which I've actually had my hands on for a couple days now, but since today is the release of the embargo, I can finally show you guys the build I did with it and exactly how it performed. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll figure out if you should buy the 5060 Ti, because this is going to be a great upgrade for a lot of people and maybe not so much for some. Now normally what I would do with a card launch like this is put it on my test bench with the 9800X3D, play some games, show you guys some numbers, and you do what you want with them. But since this is the 5060 Ti and the 60s and 60 Ti models are typically the most popular upgrades that people go with every year, according to Steam surveys anyway, I thought I'd do something a little special and put together a build around it. Now we're not talking about anything crazy like a 9950X3D or even a 9800X3D. I'm talking something reasonable, affordable, and upgradable for the average gamer. So in this video, I'm going to show you guys the build I put together around the 5060 Ti 16GB, show you guys how it performed in a bunch of different games, and hopefully answer the question that you probably have if you're watching this video, which is, should I upgrade to the 5060 Ti? I will go ahead and say for a lot of people, absolutely, if this is in your price range, you should definitely do it, but not for everyone. Now, as you can see here, I did get my hands on the Asus TUF OC edition. And yes, this is the 16GB. To be honest, I really don't think the 8GB should exist, but I do understand that there are applications for video cards other than gaming. Maybe 8 gigs of VRAM is useful there. Now, I do understand there's a price difference between the 8GB and the 16GB of about $50. With the 8GB card coming in at $379 and our 16GB launching at $429, I do honestly believe that the price to performance for this card is actually there. Which, to be totally honest, I didn't have super high expectations for the 60 series at all. Because personally, I'm a 70 and 70 Ti sort of gamer, and to be honest, the price of the 70 Ti's has just been kind of ridiculous. So prior to launch, before we got any numbers, I was really expecting to be a lot closer to the $500 price point, even on these 60 tier cards. Which I'm so glad that they're not, because this is actually huge news for gamers. Provided you are able to find one of these cards not scalped and at or near MSRP. But alright, I'm done ranting, so let me show you guys this build so you can see exactly what this card is capable of. Now for this build, I did pair this GPU with the Ryzen 7 9700X. Like I said, this isn't an all-out performance build. This is meant to be something that you guys can replicate at home and something that makes sense if you're on an upgrade path. Now I don't believe in the term future-proofing. It just doesn't, it's not a real thing in the PC gaming world. Nothing is ever going to be future-proof. But going with a CPU like the Ryzen 7 9700X gives you just a little bit of top end in case you wanted to have other tasks running or if you wanted to upgrade GPUs down the line. This thing is crazy fast, the thermals are fantastic, and the power efficiency is really good with this series. Now for the rest of the parts of this build, I honestly really did not go overboard. This is a great affordable case from Gamedius, and even all the internals like the fans, the power supply, the AIO, all came from Gamedius, which is a very affordable but quality brand. I actually had these parts left over from a sponsored video, and I was really excited to put this build in there. Now the one part you may have noticed doesn't really fit in with the rest of the parts in this build is for the RAM, I've got DDR5 6000 Corsair Dominator titanium RAM sticks. Now I actually scavenged these from a build I did last week that I'm gonna have a video up on soon. So if you are interested in seeing some of the more over-the-top builds, that thing is insane, and I'll put a preview up on screen. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, because I think this is honestly the coolest PC I've ever built. I keep getting carried away. Let's get back into this one. Now the first game I wanted to test was Marvel Rivals, since this is one of the most popular titles out right now, and it's definitely not known for its fantastic hardware optimization. So imagine my surprise after turning off DLSS and running native 1440p, seeing that we were averaging around 130 FPS on the recommended settings, which definitely did a good job of making me curious, because I had to try out a little bit of a performance boost. So I did run a match with DLSS on where we were seeing over 200 FPS. Now this was with DLSS set to quality, so you do have even more upside than that. Next, you know, I had to test out Fortnite, which I knew I would get a ton of questions about, which oddly enough, this game left me with a few questions of my own, like, is that Sabrina Carpenter? Anyway, in DX12, we saw an average of around 150 FPS, but I did get a warning about driver compatibility when I launched the game, so I did give performance mode a shot where we were seeing a wild 400 plus FPS. Now switching gears a bit, I did want to try a game that was more graphically intensive than the rest, so I booted up some Helldivers 2, and even while wrecking bugs in the swamps, full of water, foliage, and pretty much everything that normally normally bogs down a GPU, we were getting a super playable 80 to 90 FPS in 1440p with recommended settings. And finally, after all of this PC building and benchmarking, I needed a break. So I finally got to relax a bit and hop into my favorite cozy game, Counter-Strike 2. In 1440p with high settings, we had no problem seeing between 250 and 350 FPS, which is actually great. In case you're out of the loop, CS2 is infamous for being much more GPU intensive than CSGO, which has led to a lot of players selling off skins to pay for PC upgrades. Probably. So should you upgrade to the 5060 Ti this year? Yes and no. If you're gaming and it's the 8GB model, I'm going to go ahead and say probably not. Now obviously I only have the 16 gig on hand and I haven't tried the 8 gig myself, but just looking at how modern games are eating up more and more VRAM every single year, 8 gigs is not going to hold you for very long, and honestly with a lot of the AAA titles right now, it's not going to be enough. At least if you're in 1440p, which this card seems perfectly suited for. Now I think this card is a perfect upgrade for someone that's on a 3070 or less performance, because if you aren't primarily playing competitive FPS games, DLSS 4 is fantastic, and it's going to be great for everyone that's able to use it. Now obviously everything isn't supporting it right now, but in the titles that do, we're seeing double, even triple the regular frame rate that you would get with a card like this. And like I said, I'm not a believer in future-proofing whatsoever when it comes to PC gaming. But technology like DLSS 4 is actually going to keep cards like this in circulation for a lot longer than without. So for those of you wanting to build a PC but not spend $700, $1,000, $1,500 on a GPU, this card is for you. Now obviously I couldn't test this card out in every single game that you guys play, but if you leave a comment down below with whatever game you want me to test, I will be pumping out shorts where I'll be benchmarking this thing in a lot more titles as we get more driver updates, so make sure you're following so you don't miss out on that. Now I do also have 2 more builds that are already done and I'm just working on the videos right now, and so if you're into the more higher end stuff and the more over the top builds, you're definitely not going to want to miss these. So if you don't want to miss out on some of the coolest PC builds of the year, make sure you're subscribed and I'll see you guys in the next one.